Episode 5, Sports Amigos. Mike Scow, how you doing?
Dude, I'm doing great. It's been kind of fun virtually jumping around the country the way we have the last few weeks.
Literally, we started in Oklahoma City, Eugene, Oregon, Los Angeles, right? Yeah, okay, because we were episode 1. Now we're going into uncharted territory. Every episode, we go somewhere new. And tonight, we break some ground. We get the first lady in the house, which I'm stoked about. We go way back with her as well. Someone who now works in Arkansas.
Yeah, we go back to our Abilene days. Like, we all sort of cut our chops together. And we all joked. I'm sure we all have some cringeworthy stories to share with each other. But I'm with you. I'm really, really excited to bring in our next guest. From Virginia, went to Florida State, bounced over to Abilene, and then she ended up in Arkansas covering the Razorbacks in the SEC. I like to think that she is the sports queen of Arkansas these days, because now she is the head honcho of Pig Trail Nation there, like the heart and soul of Razorback Nation. Welcome to Sports Amigos, Alyssa Radler. It's so good to have you on with us.
Thank you, guys. It's so great to see you. You talk about our Abilene days. We were just kids having fun, and now look, we all have kids. So
Truly.
way to go, guys.
We truly were kids. Truly. Which is crazy to think. It's not that long ago, but yeah. We were kids.
But like 7 years ago, which is kind of long.
Oh, that felt like forever ago.
7 since we all left, right.
How old were you guys when you first moved to Abilene? I was 23. How old were you two?
Y'all want to know how I remember this? I was 24 because I moved in June and my birthday's in August, and I was all about themed parties at the time. And I am a diehard Jeff Gordon fan growing up when I was a kid. So I had a NASCAR themed 24th birthday in Abilene at Guitars and Cadillacs. And like all these people who didn't really know me at the time, because I'd only been there for a month, dressed up like NASCAR, and it was great. And that's how I remember how
I was 24 as well, but I literally turned 25 like less than a week after I got there. But still, that counts. I was 24 technically when I got there.
I don't think any of us. I feel like it's a rite of passage. If you live in Abilene, you have at least one birthday celebration at Guitars and Cadillacs, because they also have those giant fishbowl margaritas that you had to swear you would share with your friends who were there, and then we were always the ones who would end up drinking most of it. I know I did.
I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so like not COVID friendly now.
I mean, it's okay to admit we did it 7-9 years ago, but
we did that a lot.
That wasn't my style.
Well, you cannot hate on the margarita. Period.
No. Hey, but look, Alyssa, we're really stoked to get you on. Like we mentioned, you were the first lady to join us, so that's awesome. We really appreciate you making the time. It's really fun to have you on, considering the fact we never really worked with you. Technically, we were enemies in a sense. We worked for, you were at the competition of us. We were your competition. And Mike and I were talking about this. I never felt at all even for the first time I met you. I can really remember back, 2011 on, every time I met you, it was friendly. There was always a respect. And that's not always the case. Your first market, especially when you come somewhere new in general, whether it's your first market or your second job in Arkansas, you've got members of the media that aren't going to be friendly. That's just going to happen. But you never were like that. And we always respected that about you, and you worked really hard. When you think back to just getting to Abilene, that's where your career really started. And we do want to backtrack before that too. But let's jump right into Abilene first.
Yeah.
What do you remember about getting there and, starting anew in a place you've never lived before and probably never visited before you got the job?
Yeah. So we drove from Virginia to Abilene, me and my little Dodge Neon, and my dad in his truck, and I've got my car loaded down, and my dad has his truck loaded down, and we kind of made a road trip out of it. We stopped in Tallahassee to pick up a few of my things from school, and then we went to New Orleans, and we made our way, and you get through Dallas, and I guess as an East Coast girl, you kind of just assumed like trees would stop and like desert would I just figured you cross into Texas and like trees don't exist and it's just cactus. I don't know.
You think of the tumbleweeds in the wild West.
That sounds really dumb now.
No, but
yes,
you went in blind.
But it kind of gets like that once you passed Weatherford, and you get into Weatherford, then you get to Eastland, and you're like, and my dad would call me, and he'd be like, "Hey, man, are you sure about this?" Just keep driving, Dad.
Right.
Like, are you sure you want to live here? And I'm like, just keep driving, Dad. Yeah. And so we got to Abilene, and obviously, like you say, Abilene, and people are like, ooh, like Kendall Briles is the offensive coordinator here at Arkansas, and he was born in Abilene. And so I was like, yeah, my first market was Abilene. He was like, ooh. So it's kind of, but at the same time, there was a lot of respect, I think, because even though it might not be glamorous and sexy, there's a lot of people who love, especially sports and what we did and the high school stuff that we did. So I felt like I was kind of doing something that people really cared about. You know, in Tallahassee, it was Florida State and then high school football. In Abilene, it was high school football and then Abilene, McMurray, and Hardin-Simmons. Like that's the hierarchy that it was. And we were driving hours to Odessa and then to Amarillo. And I mean, I know you guys did those trips too. So I also felt like I was someone who was in a place that I'd never been, but every other reporter that worked with us, and I'm sure same with you guys, are in a place where we had never been either. You know, we had people from Boston and Maryland and Florida and North Carolina, and like none of us were from Texas. None of us were anywhere, familiar with Abilene.
And if they were from Texas, they were from another part of Texas too.
Right. Like, we had Matt Roberts, who's now in Waco. He was from San Antonio, which is like a completely different world. And even he was, and he went to Texas Tech, and he was like, Lubbock's Lubbock, but this is a whole new ball game. So I think you just kind of realize that like we're all in the same boat. And that's why for me, it was like there was zero reason to, I'm not a mean person anyways, but to be mean and to like be like, oh, you work for somebody else, I'm not going to talk to you, because that's just not who I am. But we're all in this boat covering, teams that, we're learning about as we go. And, how many times did I need to pick up the phone and, hey, man, do you have that score? Or like, hey, man, do you know how to get here? I've done that with people here in Fayetteville. So, yeah, sorry to break anyone's hearts if they think it's anything like Anchorman where we fight, because that's not how it goes. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely a learning experience. I was like, Abilene let me get my kinks out. It let me make mistakes. It was forgiving. It let me do a coach's show where these coaches, understood that I'm some 24-year-old, 25-year-old kid, and I'm, trying to make the best of this 30-minute show about Wiley football or Abilene football. And I grew as a journalist. I developed my style, but I was also able to kind of figure out what it is that I really was good at.
So let's pivot back before Abilene. You go to Florida State. Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear your story, how you got interested in sportscasting. Everyone's got a different story. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like where it started. Was it in Virginia? Was it not until you got to Florida State? Where did it start for you?
Well, yeah, so it started for me at a really early age. My dad was in local television growing up. So I spent a lot of time in a newsroom, and it was kind of fun, going with my dad. Now, my dad was like a producer, director, and then when we were in Richmond, he was a promotions director. So he was always behind the scenes, but I would go in and he'd be editing like real tape to tape, which nobody's heard of anymore. But he was in TV, and I always kind of thought it was cool. And then I played softball my whole life. So I was like, oh, that's fun. And, maybe I can do something with both of these things. And I'd always enjoyed watching sports growing up with my dad. And so when I got to high school, I kind of knew I wanted to go on that track. And then like senior year, I kind of started doing, again, we didn't have like TV classes and stuff like that kids do these days. But I started kind of doing stuff for like the local county channel during high school football, so that when I went to Florida State, I knew I wanted to be a media production major. They don't have a journalism school, by the way. They have just mass media studies and then media production. So I was a media production major and learned how to do all the behind the scenes stuff. and learn how to shoot a camera, do all that kind of stuff, and took a few reporting classes and kind of got in that way. So
I was in a similar boat that you were in, because at Arizona, it was not a school of journalism. It was a journalism department, but it was a print focused department.
mm-hmm.
And I had a high school internship at the ABC affiliate here in Tucson. And like so I had already had the journalism bug bite me back in high school. So I went in, like, I learned so much more from my internships and
Mm-hmm.
working with the reporters, going onto the field with the reporters, answering phones and working the assignment desk was a big part of what I did until I got my
Yeah.
internship in college. Was it sort of similar for you?
Well, I kind of just watched when I was in high school. I didn't do a whole lot of internship stuff. And I don't know if maybe that was because like I was just like Lenny's kid that would come hang out every now and then. It wasn't really an official capacity. Um, but I can tell you that being a media production major, and my dad, I was even like, what do I do? And my dad was like, you need to do this. You need to learn how to use a camera, how to use audio, how to edit. You need to learn all these things. Reporting will come with time. You need to learn how to do all these things. And so that's the
Because
route that
you learn how to sell yourself by that. I
right.
had experience, like, one of the big reasons I got a job in Abilene was because I knew how to use a camera and shoot high school football. You learn those tricks and those trades to sell yourself.
And I'm not gonna knock any department now, but we have some people who start with us as reporters who have never really touched a camera, barely ever, and they come from a journalism department where I was a media production major, and it was like, how do you not know how to pick up a camera? And so it's really important now to know those kind of skills, because again, the reporting is going to come with time, and you can take reporting classes and learn how to write for TV. You can do all those things through internships, but you better learn how to pick up a camera and know how to shoot and know the rule of thirds and how to light an interview and make sure your audio doesn't sound bad, and then come back, put it into a system and edit it. Because you're going to be way behind if you don't.
How long in between Florida State and Abilene?
Well, so I actually worked out of college at WCTV in Tallahassee for about a year and a half. And I was their morning producer for a little bit. Yeah. And then, because I just wanted to get my foot in the door. And so I was the morning producer, and then I became like a noon reporter, web person, and then kind of became like a number 3 for their sports department. But obviously, like we all know, it was a lot of shooting, and in that market, which was 100, I wasn't getting a whole lot of anchoring experience. So I wanted to kind of go somewhere where, like, I wasn't going to make a jump from Tallahassee up if I wasn't anchoring. So I wanted to get some more experience, and with the way that things were set up with KTAB and KRBC, I was anchoring 5 days a week, so, and hosting coaches shows and all that kind of stuff. So it was nice to kind of make that jump, even though it sounded like I was going backwards. I was taking a jump in experience, and doors kind of opening for me in terms of just like anchoring on a desk. So that's what happened.
You get to Abilene, and you spend your first few years there, really, as they say, cutting your chops, really learning what the industry is all about, and learning those tips and tricks from the photographers, the sports directors, the David Robinettes of the world.
Yeah.
Start on hey buddy. But I'm really curious. When we spoke to Brian Keating a couple weeks ago, we spoke about finding yourself, finding your cadence, and really becoming comfortable in your own skin. And that takes so much time. That's not something you learn in a classroom. I don't think you really learn that in the first couple years, maybe in the first market that you go to. But I'm curious, do you feel comfortable in your own skin now, all these years after starting in Abilene, or do you feel like you're still trying to figure out you on camera?
No, I definitely feel me. I pretty much have a brand and a style at this point, but I think you're absolutely right. I think, you kind of have this preconceived notion of what it's supposed to be like and how you're supposed to deliver things. And it's harder for people than it is for some other people. And there is no definition on what that means. So if you were like, how am I supposed to do this to 10 different people, you're going to get 10 different answers. And I think it just was more of the comfortability for me of just being on camera and reading the teleprompter and making it sound conversational that I learned in Abilene. But it wasn't until, and I remember, as you wear your college World Series shirt, it wasn't that one, but it was the first one that I covered in 2015, where it was almost like, and I don't know how it was with you guys, but it was almost like a light bulb went off, and I was about to do a live shot, and I didn't have a script, and I was like, I did this interview. Like, I know what I'm going to say, just say it. And like, that was kind of my moment of like, if I know my stuff and I know my content, I'm just as able to deliver that as anybody else. And I don't know what it took for me to get to that point, but from that point, I've been more comfortable and I've been able to really find my style and not feel scared. And I know that's kind of a weird word to use in delivering sports and delivering the news. But yeah, I mean, I remember that moment, and it was kind of like a light bulb for me. And it might have taken me a little bit longer to get there than some people, but it finally happened, I guess.
Brandon, I've been curious to know sort of your story to figure out sort of the same thing. Do you feel comfortable in your own skin, and do you feel like you're there, sort of like who Brandon Ortega is on screen or on camera?
This isn't something I've ever like thought consciously about, if I have to be honest. I think the thing when it comes to the sound of my voice that I have been a bit like critical and just like try to improve on is tracking. I remember in Abilene, Brian Keating sitting me down while I was cutting a package, and he comes up and asked me to just to pause for a second. He's like, "Hey, I got to talk to you about your tracking. He's like, when you're live with me on our high school football show, you sound awesome. Like, you sound natural, this and that. Whenever you track, your voice changes completely. You sound robotic. You don't sound like yourself." So I guess when it comes to that sort of thing, tracking is probably the part of my job that I've tried to sound as natural as I can, because like I said, being live, you can't help but like, there's no like second take. You got to just be yourself as much as you can. And the pressure's on you more so to just like drop the act, be yourself. When you can practice something, when you can take as many takes as you want, then you almost forget about that natural aspect. So yeah, I would say tracking, for sure, since my Abilene days, that's something I've tried to get better and better at, for sure. How about you, Alyssa?
Tracking in my voice has always been number one. And I don't know if it's just because I'm just my worst critic, but delivery and stuff. And I remember there was a girl that I was in school with, and like she could just, and I was like, how do you do that? And I track and I sound like this, and mama. I was like, what is wrong?
We've all done it. Yeah, we've all done
Why do I sound like this? But yeah, I think if I had to pinpoint something that I'd still love to get better at, it's my tracking and delivery, because I think you're absolutely right, Brandon. Like, look, when we're live, and we know it. And if like we stumble, we just got to keep going. But I couldn't tell you how many look lives it took me outside of the Cisco Lobos football field to freaking tape and come back. And I'm like, if I was live, I would have no problem, and I think it's like a mental thing. Like, we know if we can mess up, we can start over again.
Have you guys ever seen the clip of Marty Smith from ESPN talking to some local affiliate reporter who is currently doing a look live? Have you seen this?
Yes, I have.
I have not.
It's very sweet.
So basically, the kid is doing a look live, and Marty Smith is walking in the back of his shot, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, man." He's like, "Hey, by the way, I hate doing this part of my job." It's like you being live, okay, I gotta stop doing his voice. I can't help it. He's like, when you're live, you can just be yourself. But doing this over and over, and you feel like you can do it again, it drives you crazy. So I loved how much he humanized that part. And that's a niche thing that only like people like us can understand, working at a local affiliate, doing what people like. Some people don't even know what a look live is. A lot of people don't.
Right.
And the look lives and the tracking, like, you could take too much advantage of not being live. And that's a learning experience for sure.
I try to go into the edit bays and like channel my inner Tom Rinaldi. And I'm like, if I were Tom Rinaldi, how would I deliver this? And it never comes out that way, but I try in my head.
I love that we've tossed out some of these names of these incredible journalists and incredible people who get to tell stories. And I'm curious, Alyssa, who helped you? Who was the inspiration really that guided you to sort of create who you are? For me, it was Tom Rinaldi was a guy like I went back for a story that I was doing in Abilene. I went back and I watched like 3 or 4 different Rinaldi stories to try and figure out. He tells such good long form stories. So I wanted to sort of emulate a little bit of what he did. Yeah. But Scott Van Pelt was that guy for me. Scott, like he very matter of fact, he didn't let emotion get the best of him. He didn't become, one side or the other. He was very much here's everything. And I'm just going to present everything to you, but I'm still going to tell it to you matter of fact. But I'm curious, who was it for you that you wanted to emulate and who you used to sort of craft Alyssa on camera?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think we all love Tom Rinaldi's storytelling, and I go back to my tracking on just the way he's able to deliver it. And then in a storytelling realm, when I was in college, my teacher that I had that did teach reporting always showed us Steve Hartman stories, and he's a CBS guy, and he does the whole like across. I mean, and it like Steve Hartman will make you cry every day.
Yes.
And it's not that I want to make people cry every day, but it's the way that he develops the stories and like unwraps them like a present that I loved. But I think when you talk about style, Mike, I think for a woman in this business, it's hard sometimes to feel like, look, I don't look like Erin Andrews. I don't look like Laura Rutledge, and nothing against anything at all, but like I'm a brunette, I'm not a blonde, you know what I mean? Like I have short hair. And I was trying to figure out like what it was that I brought to the table. And she's not on air anymore. But I really connected with Lindsay Zarniak on ESPN.
Oh, she's amazing.
I thought she's with Fox right now.
Oh, she might be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where she is.
But no, she's great.
Exactly. She was doing a podcast for a while. And of course, her husband, Craig, is on the Today Show and all that stuff. But for me, when I could look at Lindsay, who was in that spot at ESPN, who had actually who had come from DC, who went to James Madison University in Virginia. She's from Virginia. I was born on campus at JMU. Like there was a lot of things that I felt like I could connect with Lindsay with, but she was just so cool on air. And it wasn't this whole like, I look good, so listen to what I have to say. It was with Lindsay, it was like, I know my shit, so listen to what I have to say. And
she's so comfortable. She's comfortable in her own skin.
Right. Yes. And so that I really latched on to the fact like I felt she was real. And it was like, I want people to think that I'm real. I want people to think, to know that I'm knowledgeable, to take me seriously. And I'm going to be fun. And I can be a smart ass and I can have fun and we can like goof off, but I can also like put you in your place if you tell me that I'm wrong and I know that I'm right. And I just really looked to her and the way that she held herself and conducted herself. And that kind of really helped me. I got to meet her at the Super Bowl a few years ago and I had like a freak out moment. But
you get to talk to her
that would be my person.
Did you get to talk to her for a second?
Yeah, I like stopped her and I was like, "Hi, I just want to tell you that like I love you." And and then I was like, but I had to pull out the whole like, but my mom and dad and my sister also went to JMU and I was born on campus, and I had to like throw the JMU thing out there really fast because I was like, I don't know, she's gonna talk to me, and she was so nice, and
that's cool.
She was asking me like what I did, and I was asking her, and she was telling me, well, I've got a podcast coming, and then she took a picture with me, and then like my life was coming.
That's so cool. Yeah. Well, this segues us perfect into women in sports. This is something like that topic. You can go in a lot of different directions with. I was telling Mike this yesterday. I feel like since like my Abilene days, since 2011, from then to now, women more and more are taking over. You know, in like all aspects of sports casting. And
even behind the scenes in all aspects of sports and covering sports. It's not one area. It's not just on camera. It's everywhere.
And a huge majority of them are doing it because they are awesome, because they're great at their jobs, and you can just tell like they worked for it. So let's start this avenue from here. Take us to you starting in Abilene. Actually, well, you can start wherever you want. Like being a woman in what for the longest time, let's face it, in any broadcasting, being a woman in a man's world, you know, a male dominated arena. Is that something like coming into the industry? Was that something you had a chip on your shoulder about, or was it something that you didn't really think about and you were just going for it?
Well, it's not that I had a chip on my shoulder. I just kind of knew what I was getting myself into. Does that make sense? Like I was prepared because I knew what I was getting myself into. And it's funny because I've had this conversation. I've had a lot of students at Arkansas who have reached out to me who have wanted to do like, you know, projects or whatever. And I get that question a lot. And I tell this story every single time. When I was hired in Tallahassee to be their number 3 sports person. People take vacation. I'm gonna get airtime. And my boss at the time, he was our he was our news director, and his name was Mike Smith. And he sat me down and he said, Alyssa, I just need to tell you that you have to work 10 times harder than Elton and Sam are gonna have to, because I could put you on TV and you could mispronounce a name calling highlights. Elton makes that same mistake. I get phone calls saying, get that stupid girl off my TV. She doesn't know what she's talking about, and Elton will get a pass. That's what you're up against. And I remember the first time I kind of tasted a little bit of that, I was calling Florida State, Virginia highlights. And if you know anything about the University of Virginia, yes, they're the Cavaliers, but they also are called the Wahoos and the Who's. And I called them that, and I got an email that was like, I am very upset that your reporters and anchors don't do more research, and I'm from Virginia, and they are the Virginia Cavaliers. They are not the Wahoos or the Who's or whatever it is that you called them on television. And I'm extremely offended that you can't get that right and blah, 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 blah. And so I was like, okay, hi. So glad that you're also from Virginia. As a fellow Virginian, I am so sorry you didn't get my Wahoo reference. Here is the link to U of A's website about that specific nickname. Have a great day.
We've all been there when we have to correct people when you're already correct.
Yeah,
you know? That's a tough email to write, because it's like I'm right, she's wrong, but I'm still gonna give them the benefit of the doubt and write them.
But that email wouldn't have gotten sent to Sam or Elton at the time.
Probably not.
And so that was kind of some things that, you know, that's the first thing I heard. And then like think about it, guys, when you were applying for jobs and looking around, you know, the market, you could apply anywhere you wanted to. Now, and you got to remember, this was like, you know, 2010. We've come a long way a little bit.
Social media also is worth mentioning.
Barely
still way on its way up. Still right. Like becoming not quite as
like Twitter's still trying to figure out what it's good at.
Right.
You know? So you guys could apply wherever you wanted. You know, you're dudes. you could get a job. For me, I have to do my research. I have to look it up. And if they already have a female in that department and that female's not the one leaving, they're not hiring me. Okay.
So let me ask you this. On that note, do you feel like that has changed at all?
Oh,
do you feel
yeah.
do you feel like TV stations are now, like, I know for a fact there is a station in California, I won't mention which one, but they have a 3-person sports department. One job is specifically for a female.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they told me that straight up.
I will give you guys this. Like, I think sometimes the other way around, on the flip side of that coin, was there are stations who are looking for a female. And so if they don't have a female in their department, you drew the short stick, because they're going to try to find a female to knock in. I do think, though, that it's changing. And my station is one that's a complete example of that. We're the sports department for Fayetteville and for Little Rock. So we're technically a statewide product. They promoted me to be the face of the Pig Trail Nation, and Tara Talmadge is our weekend anchor. So your Monday through Friday is a female, your Saturday and Sunday is a female.
Which is awesome. I mean, that in itself shows progress right there.
Yeah. So
has that been well received?
Oh yeah, people love. So like, what's cool with Tara is Tara's got her own kind of niche. Tara has been able to do some stuff with the SEC network and do some sideline stuff for games when they're in town. And so she's obviously been able to build her credibility in this market. This is year 4 for her. So it's not like we brought in someone brand new. I think because Tara had developed herself already, people were used to seeing her, and then people have been seeing my face for 7 years now. So I don't think it was a hard transition for people to get on board with.
Hey, you know what? And in a way, you paved the way for her to jump into that spot. You, for the last 6-7 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, find me a sports department that has 2 females. Mm-hmm. Even before I had my job, right?
Well, there you go. Yeah.
And even when we were looking to fill her position, and we've held off right now because, obviously with COVID and we're not traveling as much, that they were like, I don't mind 3 women. And I was like, oh, what? Mm-hmm. That kind of, and I didn't mean no disrespect, because I'm like, yeah, girl power. But I was like, wow, I got 2 and I thought we were kind of hot shit. Sorry if I can't curse.
Hey, we're on YouTube.
Hey, fine.
We're on YouTube. We don't have any restrictions.
But but I was like, well, okay.
That's great.
All right then. I'm not saying that we will and we eventually go down that road, but the fact that it was even like a thing is completely different than how it was 10 years ago.
I know that this discussion, this topic, is a lot to unpack. There are a lot of elements, a lot of different things that go with this. But within this entire spectrum, and you saying you've had a lot of conversations about this, you've worked on several projects, and this is something you're passionate about. What are the most important aspects of that discussion that you really lean on or really try and vocalize?
Yeah, well, so I think it kind of starts with not making it about myself. Obviously, I want to be respected and heard and trusted. But at the end of the day, I remember, and this was with my market that I'm with now, with one of my co-sports director alongside of me, who's just kind of like a news director of sorts. We don't have time. If it's not baseball, football, or men's basketball, we don't have time in the show. We have a women's track program at Arkansas that's won like 27 SEC titles. I mean, it's stupid. And like, we only talk about them. We only talked about them when they won things. Like, oh, hey, by the way, also cross country won. Like, we get it. Track won. Like, are they sexy sports people love? No. But are they the number 1 team in the country year in and year out? Yes. Like, we have to talk about them. The soccer team and the fact that they were in the top 5 all year and have been really, really good, knocked off number 1 North Carolina a year ago. And it's like, again, this has changed. But when I got here, it was like, we don't have time for that. People don't care. We don't have time for that in the show. Women's basketball. Look, women's basketball struggled, and for a while it was bad. But I guess what I'm saying is every time I wanted to do something about a female athlete, it was like, well, I don't know where I'm going to fit that into the show. people don't care. And I finally was like, well, I'm going to make people care, and I'm going to do a Women's Wednesday, and you going to put it in the show. So I started doing that, and I haven't been able to do them as regularly as I've wanted to, but that was kind of my first step into just trying to highlight a women's sports. It helps now that they are pretty dang good, so we get them in the show a lot, and we get to talk to them more. But yeah, I mean, it was a battle at first to just be like, hey guys, I get it. I get that it's soccer. I get that it's track, but they're pretty good, and they deserve some attention as well too. And we all know this. It is so easy to call up like a soccer SID and get whatever you want versus the football SID. We all know that. That's just life, right? So so that was kind of the start of it. But yeah, I mean, I just think it's important. And I think especially as we've continued to progress over the past couple of years, especially like with women's basketball, the attention has heightened, which has been exciting.
I cannot tell you enough how much fun it was to cover both Oregon State and Oregon women's basketball when I was living in Eugene. Yeah. Oregon State was the first to do it when they rose through. They made it to the women's Final Four, and that team turned into must-see TV. And the same thing with Oregon's women's basketball. And I still to this day, like last night, I made time. I watched the Oregon women play their game last night, and I thought, this is so much fun. And a personal thing for me, being a girl dad with 2 little girls, I have a picture when Oregon women's basketball, the year that they made the Final Four, they came down and their coach, Kelly Graves, let me come to shoot around just because I wanted to see them. I wanted to just talk to them and catch up. And it's one of my favorite pictures. I have a picture of Sabrina Ionescu holding my 11-month-old daughter. She had the biggest, Sabrina had the biggest, fattest grin on her face doing that. And she couldn't get enough of seeing this little kid crawl around. And it was so cool to see that, to see her being involved with a little kid. But then for me to be a girl dad, to see that happen too, and to see them just ball out so hard, like everything's sort of coming together the way it did. The Sabrinas of the world just, electrifying the sports scene. It's so cool.
Yeah, Mike, I know that you covered like the Pac-12, Pac-10 for a while. Like our coach here at Arkansas now is Mike Neighbors, who was the coach at Washington, who took them to the Final Four, who had Kelsey Plum. And so, Kelsey Plum was the #1 draft pick overall that year when they made it to the Final Four. He's now at Arkansas, and I love Mike, going forever about him. But, Oregon, you talk about Oregon now has a podcast, and some guy that I know is the editor for that podcast. If you're Oregon, you could start your podcast with anyone you wanted to. And the first episode is with Sabrina Ionescu.
And to see people like Sabrina, who have such following power, that any arena she goes to, she commands a massive crowd of opposing fans just clamoring and praying they have a chance to get a photo with her. I mean, she was up for an ESPY like athlete of the year against like the LeBron James and these headliners of the world. Like to see the command and the respect and the athletic ability and owning up to her and doing it the right way, to see that has been so cool for women's sports. We need more of the Kelsey Plums. We need more of the Sabrina Ionescu's in the world, because it's as a result, it's so cool to see this rise in attention to women's sports. And I do have to say, covering Oregon women's track and field too, ballers, man, ballers.
For sure.
Okay, so I feel like we wouldn't be doing this conversation justice if we didn't talk about some of the other struggles you've been in the business as a woman in sportscasting. You mentioned that email, and that's just like the teeniest tiny bit of adversity a woman could have in sportscasting. what are some things that come to mind that have been challenging for you? I think specifically out in the field, because we've talked about it. You've done all of your own stuff, shooting your own camera work, holding the microphone, triple tasking out on the field. There's had to have been moments out in the field that have been challenging. And what are some learnable moments for you could pass on to other young journalists?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like I've been fortunate enough to not have many of those. And maybe, I don't know how to put this politely. Maybe it's because I dress for my job. And I look, like, I'm not showing up to a football field in heels and a skirt and a top trying to shoot football. Like, that's just not me. If I could show up in a sweatshirt and sweatpants, I would do that. Anyways,
it's comfy.
It's very comfy. But I've seen it from afar, if that makes sense. My whole thing is, sometimes I feel like women feel like they have to look a certain way in this industry when they don't have to. And I don't know where that started, nor is it any excuse for any kind of other behavior that attracts. I'm not saying that at all whatsoever. I have been very fortunate where I haven't had to deal with a lot of stuff. I have had to deal with, like, the biggest thing that I've had to deal with is for people to stop talking to me like I'm stupid. I feel like sometimes, here's an example. I feel like when I walk into a room, I have to prove myself that I know what I'm talking about, where a man could walk in and get the benefit of the doubt until proven otherwise. And I say that because there were a lot of press conferences at Arkansas, which is like 10 times steps up from interviewing high school coaches and interviewing Abilene Christian coaches. I mean, it is like a giant leap. And the minute I'm like holding my camera and my microphone, the minute I start talking, because I can go back and I can see you in the scrum, there's like a writer who goes, oh, like that. But he doesn't do it when anyone else asks that question. But the minute that I open my mouth, it's, oh, this little recorder.
It's always the prank guys.
And he would do it with some other females too. But he doesn't do it with me anymore. Because I think he kind of gets, okay, Alyssa's smart.
She's legit.
She knows what she's talking about. He even has a nickname for me. It's funny. Calls me Agent Orange a lot. But it was one of those things where, like, at first it kind of like hurt my feelings, and I was like, well, that's rude. But then I was like, I gotta, I just gotta let it roll off my shoulder, and eventually he'll come around, and he did. So
lose situation for ladies being in that predicament, because if it's you obviously see something, and if you react to it, it only makes it worse.
Yeah.
If you react to it. And then if you don't, you feel like a pushover.
Well, you just are kind of like, well, I mean, I think anyone in that position is like, well, did I ask a dumb question? Which is like any person's worst nightmare in our industry, and then you start second guessing what you're doing and what you asked, and if you sounded stupid, and you just kind of start questioning a million things in your head. And as a brand new woman in this industry, in this market, I was just like, oh my God, like, what did I do? What did I do? What was wrong? When in reality, nothing was wrong. So you just kind of have to roll with the punches. And yeah, again, I have been very fortunate to where my experiences, I know, have been nothing compared to what some other women have gone through.
Right.
I've heard some horror stories from other women in sports, and it's incredible what other human beings will actually say to a person. But I'm curious,
especially on social media.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. Like there's that whole like
trolling.
Alyssa thinks she knows what she's talking about, but she's stupid. Or like, there was one that was going around Twitter the other day that was like, women covering sports are only there for one reason. And I don't think like that whole, like, I don't think if you never played the game, you shouldn't be covering the game. And, there was that was circling around.
When 99% of the guys on TV never played.
Well, that was what Chris Booting put out. She was like, and you think that 99% of these announcers have ever played this game outside of middle school? Have you seen Taylor Zarzer? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Yep.
That's what does that have anything to do with anything?
Mm-hmm.
So is your message to the people that you talk to, the other up and coming men, women, anybody who's coming up in the sport, is your message to them, you've got to let it slide? Is your message be patient? Is your message just head down and bulldoze along? What do you tell them?
Oh man, I don't necessarily, I think you got to have a combination of all of it. I think that coming up, my first and foremost, and the biggest thing that's always been a big thing for me is know your content, right? Like if you're us in Abilene, go buy a Dave Campbell and read that book. If you're right, rest in peace. Like we love
Bible.
It. Yes, right. Got one every year. Read that stuff. Even if I'm driving up to like Eastland High School, I quickly just flip and remind myself, like be knowledgeable, do your homework. Like it's not going to be easy for any of us. You got to come in and know what you're talking about. Put in the work, because I think it starts there and everything else will work itself out. You're going to hit adversity. You're going to have someone call you a name. You're going to have someone call the station and tell you that your top looks terrible. Like that's going to happen, but you can't let that discourage you on a small scale. If it's a big scale, you need to stand up for yourself. I am never going to tell anybody to push anything under the rug, whatever that may be.
Right.
But you got to, like, the biggest thing right now for anyone getting in this business is you got to put in the work. You got to put in the work.
Persevere.
Like, I don't know how and we've seen this on a national scale with some people who get to ESPN and they're not there anymore. They don't last very long. They don't last very long because they got there one way or the other, but that's not sustainable. Knowledge is sustainable. You know what I mean?
And work ethic too.
Yeah. That's my advice.
It's great advice.
Hard, be knowledgeable.
It's really good advice. Well, Mike and I do this fun thing every episode. Okay. Don't know if you know what's coming, but it's called the lightning round.
The lightning round.
10 questions.
Ooh.
You don't have to rip off an answer right away, because if you want to think about it, in case there might be a couple questions.
Are you not going to time me?
No, we don't do the time.
We're 25 seconds on the clock.
We're not that strict.
We want to have fun. We want to have fun with it.
Our production value is not that high. we can't put a timer on the screen.
Oh, darn it.
We'll get there, but
maybe someday. Okay, 10 questions. Okay. We're just going to rip them off, and you answer as you can. So starting with question 1, favorite Abilene restaurant?
Oh, man, Abuelos.
Ooh, okay.
Good one. Favorite Abilene.
It was also right beside the station. What?
Oh,
I'm sure you walked there a couple times from work. Yeah.
Okay. Favorite Abilene sports memory?
Golly. I don't know. Gosh. I don't know. I loved covering me some Steve Warren. He was my favorite. I don't necessarily know like if they had a moment, but I loved going over there on practices, on walkthroughs on Thursday and just shooting shit with Coach. He was great.
Yeah, we were there after his state championship. So we missed out on that. You and I missed out on that, but he's a legend. Yeah, he's a great.
Yeah.
Total legend. Okay. How big of a sports fan is your son?
Oh, big. Except for when we watch sports, he goes, "Are we rooting for the blue team or the white team?" And I have to tell him. But he likes.
And by the way, before the show ends, we got to talk about you being mom and all that stuff. We've buried the lead a little bit.
That's okay.
That's awesome stuff.
Well, he's 3. He's 3. Here's the problem. Yeah. I live in a college town with the Razorbacks, and so like that's all he sees.
Right.
And so like my Florida State fandom hasn't been doing so hot. But mommy watched the Dodgers all the way through the World Series, so he understands what that means.
Right there in the corner, little
yep,
Dodgers.
I got my t-shirts. My cutouts should be in the mail soon.
My Dodgers cap
shrine.
Remover. Yeah, it's a cap remover. Nice. Man cave official. Yeah.
Okay. Most entertaining, not best, but most entertaining interview or interviewee you've had.
Probably Jerry Jones. I'm pretty sure he was drunk.
Jerry Jones?
We'll leave that story for another day.
He was really nice, but he's an Arkansas alum, so he was at some alum thing that I had to go to in Dallas, and I'm pretty sure he was like, yeah.
Oh yeah, he would have been blitzed.
Your name's Alyssa. Razorbacks.
So
nice.
That had to be the most entertaining one.
Okay. Best football atmosphere in the SEC that is not Arkansas.
Alabama.
That was quick.
Oh, dude. Went to Tuscaloosa for the first time last year, and I was like, this is unbelievable.
Right.
Wow. And they were playing Arkansas, and it was still like, and it was a night game. It was like, oh my God.
Like you're talking, this is like tailgate, game atmosphere, stadium atmosphere. You're saying like the whole 9 yards, it's Alabama.
Well, yeah, I don't really get to experience the tailgating side.
But like you walk around, you walk through it.
Oh, well, if I have to say, obviously, if it's the tailgate, here's the thing: Oxford wins the tailgating trophy. Alabama wins the atmosphere inside the stadium.
Oxford, Ole Miss.
Ole Miss fans are rude.
Okay.
Favorite vacation spot before and after motherhood.
Ooh.
Very different.
Yeah. Well, obviously the answer should be Vegas, but I've never been to Vegas. But probably the beach. And then afterwards, my aunt lives in New Braunfels, has a pretty cool house on the Guadalupe River. So that's pretty legit vacation spot to go down there and hang out.
It's gotta be
chill. Yeah, it's chill. I don't have to do anything. It's nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Actually relaxing.
New Braunfels is legit. I'll say that. Okay. What's your fallback career if TV goes out the window?
You guys want to really know the answer to this?
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Okay. Well, we're currently doing this interview in my craft room. So.
Oh, yes.
My sewing machine is down here. And my Cricut's back here. And it's messy because I work in it a lot. So, Alyssa's Etsy store will open if sports decides to be done with me.
I know. Yeah, I know you've sewn your own masks as a result of COVID earlier this year. So cool. That you lead me perfectly into this next question: Pinterest or Etsy?
Oh, I think Pinterest, because I think I'm too scared right now to open up my own Etsy shop, and so Pinterest just gives me inspiration.
I know what Pinterest
Etsy is. What I aspire to get to.
What is the other thing? I don't know what that is.
Etsy.
Pinterest?
No, Pinterest I know. What's the other one?
Oh, Etsy is like it's like an online store for homemade goods.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Surprised my fiance's not shown me that. I'm sure she knows about that. She's
probably spent money there and doesn't want to show you.
My wife has. And on Amazon and at Target and many other places.
Yeah.
Next question.
Check my statements.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Favorite movie you're ashamed to admit?
Guilty pleasure, right? Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ashamed to it. I don't know, man. I don't know.
You don't have shame.
I really like Nightmare Before Christmas. I know all the words of the song.
No, that's a classic.
That's a beloved movie.
Yeah.
I know. So I don't know if I'm necessarily like I don't hate that I admit
like,
that.
are you saying you watch that any time of the year?
Well, since my husband Saul doesn't like it.
Okay, well.
I have to watch it by myself. So.
Okay. We've reached the 10th and final question, and I did choose my attire accordingly for this one on purpose. And I have this one here on purpose as a result of it too. So here we go. Worst sports moment for you, and there are a few of these. 2018 College World Series, you were there. Game 2, bottom of the ninth, Arkansas, Oregon State. 1 out away from a national title, and Arkansas drops a pop fly in foul territory.
You were there for that one? Alyssa? Okay.
Yeah.
In the stands.
Yep.
Okay.
So option number 2,
mm-hmm.
Willie Taggart putting the nail in the Florida State football coffin. Because that was like a 5 or 6 year demise of the program.
These are low blows. Low blows, dude.
Okay. And
this is only number 2.
So this is the third and final option. The Jameis Winston fumble against Oregon in the Rose Bowl in 2015. I had to add that one. Please don't hate me.
No, look, all right. So that one gets a pass because we had just won a national title in 2013. So it was kind of like I was living. And I will have to say that game I watched at a local sports bar here with my friend who's an Oregon fan, but with my husband for the first time, like when we were like kind of talking. So it was like a good thing for me, even though they lost. Willie Taggart in this Florida State crap. I can't, it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. I just don't, I'm not there for it. But it was bad. It was really bad. And I had a friend who went to who went to Oregon, and every time he was like, Willie, I would just get Willie hate.
I was in Oregon. I was in Eugene for his whole like 355 days of coaching at Oregon.
Yeah, but so I think what was worse was while that was happening, I was experiencing Chad Morris at Arkansas. So like I couldn't catch a break.
Yeah, that was a bad run there.
It was bad.
Oh my God.
But I have never been more heartbroken covering a team than in 2018 at that College World Series. I still to this day don't know what to say, except for it was Eric Cole's ball.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's and you'll say it was Eric Colt's ball. You'll take that to the grave.
It's Eric Cole's ball. That's not Jared Gates' ball at first base. He's running backwards. Carson Chetty had to run sideways. That's Eric Cole's ball.
Wow. Well, you called it. You made it through all 10. Welcome to the fraternity of the lightning round.
Thanks. Hope I did it well. Gosh.
Dude, that was a good one.
I would say yours was the most sharp.
Okay.
And you didn't mess around. You just you got to the point. Her and Keating, I would say, have been the sharpest so far.
Good.
Yeah. The other.
If I can be in Brian Keating's company, then I'm good.
Yeah. As always. Hey, look. I mean, it's been so long since we've seen you in person, but through the power of social media, I've really enjoyed seeing what you've been doing, whether it be killing it in Arkansas, now being a mom, living the married life. You're expecting as well. We've completely buried the lead here. You're currently expecting child now.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
And it's a girl, so I'm like
super.
Hey!
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome to the club.
Oh,
thanks.
My goodness.
I'm excited.
What do you do?
May 13th.
Ooh.
Wow.
So 5 months-ish, 4 or 5. Yeah, 5 months left.
Does your oldest understand that there is now a younger sibling
and a girl coming too?
Sort of, but he can't. I don't think he comprehends exactly what it means. My sister-in-law just had a baby, so he just got a baby girl cousin. Okay. And so to him, baby means oh, I have a cousin and I see her sometimes.
Right.
So I don't think he comprehends that.
Very different.
This one doesn't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm. So I'd love to close this awesome chat on this note. How has it been for you the last 3 years adjusting to what is a very demanding job with the hours, especially working nights like you do, being the head honcho of Big Trail Nation? What's been the most challenging thing for you? You know, being a mom, you know, and not being there nearly as much as you want to be.
Yeah. I think, you know, and I bet you guys can relate as well. You know, when they're younger, it's easier because they don't really know, like they don't really know. And they're kind of in bed early, and so it doesn't really like matter. I think now that Finn is 3, he understands that mommy goes to work, and like he'll say stuff about like even when it's my day off, he's like, "You can't come, mommy, you have to go to work." And I'm like, I'm not working today.
He's got the routine.
Or he always just kind of expects me to leave after dinner. Like, okay, mom, bye, you can go to work. And I'm like, no, I don't have to go to work today. Or, you know, if I do have to go back to work and he doesn't want me to go back to work, he makes that known. And that's hard. Like, that's hard. I think those are the hard moments because now he gets it. And before it was kind of easy because he was just so little. And I think it'll get harder when he like has stuff going on, if I'm, you know, if I have to miss things. And so, yeah, I just think as he gets older, it's going to be harder. And then props to my husband for being, you know, mom and dad at night, and they'll have to take 2 on soon. So, wouldn't be able to do it without them. I will have to say, like, shout out to the single moms and the single dads out there, because I have no clue how you do it. All the praise to those people.
I know. Yeah.
I'll say, speaking from a 2-kid family, it's tough and you figure out a routine that works for you, but man, tell your husband how great he's doing. It's one of the best things that my wife tells me. You're doing an awesome job. You're a great dad. And that's been really helpful. But yeah, I will also say this for your husband as well. Dude's gonna be wrapped little girl's finger so fast. He's screwed
from minute 1. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he knows
That's what I
it
always
too.
hear.
The minute we found out we were having a girl, he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna treat this one a whole lot differently." I was like,
good man.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
You bet you are. So he's excited.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks, guys.
That's awesome. Very cool. Well, I think it's only fitting that we cheers our 5th episode. The first lady amongst the sports amigos. You're a certified sports amigo now. Now that we've hung out in the sports amigo chats. Thank you for joining us. Good luck with baby number 2.
Thank you.
And just, you know, best stay safe and healthy.
Thank you. Guys are awesome. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's been amazing to catch up with you guys, and I'm happy you get to put a little pin now in your map of Fayetteville, Arkansas.
We've had a lot of fun being able to go from place to place, and this one has been exceptionally special, especially because of the ties in Abilene we have, and so much more. But you're a rock star in our book.
Well, thanks, guys. Cheers. Always.
Boom.
I wish this was wine, but you know.
You'll get there in 5 months.
I will. I'm almost there, man.
Yeah, 5 months-ish.